Hello. So in this screencast, I'm using Google Translator Toolkit, and I've picked a text maybe that's a little more exciting for our international audience. This is the official platform uh, of the alternative for Germany. No advertisement. I'm just trying to give some insights maybe because they are very German, so they don't translate a lot, and maybe it's something um, that their party platform might be something that's interesting to an international audience. Um, so we come to the first sentence. They use a very boastful language, a lot of not big words like pathetic words. So in English, we could say like maintaining Germany's or protecting Germany's. We want to remember we're trying to copy this pathetic style, right? So protecting Germany's sovereignty, or even sovereignty, something that's as you might even consider saying independence because that's like a big word in the American context, right? So protecting Germany's independence, no, um, or resisting. You wouldn't say Nein zu den Vereinigten Staaten von Europa. Saying you could say like saying no, but you wouldn't just say no. So, or you could to kind of stay with the vibe, you could say resisting the United States of Europe, right? Protecting Germany's independence, resisting the United States of Europe. So I think this transfers the vibe of this grand manifesto of the alternative for Germany, but for Europe. Um, so in the next sentence we have they're, they're using like a derogatory term, the Europe of Lisbon, like the treaty, or you could, so maybe we want to unravel that. We want to say um, the present treaty of Lisbon, Europe, and see the machine translation. They translated this is a result of an organization of states, um, which is wrong because when you're writing translation, they have used a very complicated expression to show the relationship. So it's not the result of an organization of states. It is an organization of states. So beginners, they make a lot of errors um, when they do not interpret the prepositions. You have to interpret the prepositions and not just look them up in the dictionary and say it's a result of an organization. It is an organization of states, or you could say a multinational organization. Um, we could try improving on the tone. You know, a multinational organization sounds more thing than just an organization of states um, who define their interests and duties through international treaties. So here again, I've used the technique that I just mentioned before. I've, I've really I've really simplified the preposition. Here they say on the basis of, auf der Basis. I'm just saying through. who define their interests and duties through international treaties, or you could say by means of, or a lot of times I hear via, which I hate. Via means like using the road or whatever, right? Via is a road. So a lot of times in German translations I read this via, but you stay with very simple prepositions. It forces you to think more clearly. So by, through, because, and don't start copying the source text, the bad writing habits of using prepositions that consists of 4 or 5 words, you know? So the, so we have a very big, you know, now we have an exciting opening sentence. The present Treaty of Lisbon, Europe, is a multinational organization. Or yeah, we have to switch plural. Organization, or a multinational organization. No, we cannot say multinational, so this just failed. An organization of states who define their interests and duties through international treaties. You could also say on the basis of, or whatever, you know, they use these treaties and they use them to define their interests. Now they have a very nasty adjective compound noun combination, like a non-recoverable waiver of sovereignty, which nobody would understand. So don't even think of writing anything near that. You have to really rethink that. First, so always when you translate, you start with the subject. The subject, in this case, I'm going to turn the European Union into the subject. So an increasingly integrated, right? They're saying it's getting tighter. Basically, we're going to use this word integrated, European integration, in a negative way. An increasingly integrated European Union leads to irrecoverable um, we cannot say waiver of sovereignty. They're meaning we're giving up our we're giving up our independence, right? This is what they mean. So this is a polemic text. If we want to speak to an average audience, we can't say like irrecoverable waivers or something like that. We have to say uh, um, forces states. It forces states. This is what they mean. So we're going to say that forces states to give up their independence and so what they are saying here, we really have to pay attention to the nuance, right? Because first they say the European Union was originally, so now this is telling us something about the first sentence, something which I might have not interpreted exactly. So the present Treaty of Lisbon, Europe, goes back to an organization of states who defined, we're talking about the past and now they're talking about the present, their interests and duties through international treaties. and increasingly integrated European Union this forces the states to give up their independence and has and no longer has anything to do with this original construction. So you see, I've translated it very loosely, but uh, imagine you're holding a speech in a pub in England. You know, you want the people to understand you. An increasingly integrated European Union forces the states to give up their independence and no longer has anything in common with this original construction or with this original idea. And now they're using a German phrase, and we're gonna, unless it's used in English-speaking countries, we're gonna have to find a translation for that. This is like a polemic term of the right wing. A Europe of fatherlands. So, oh, European Union is also using that term in its maybe in its transcripts of parliamentary debates or whatever. So, yeah, we want to we can't say Europe of nation states. Yeah, Europe is made up of nation states. So this is not a very this translation doesn't really uh, give us the meaning. So yeah, we would have to say like a Europe of nations or a Europe of fatherlands. Should it not be possible, right? They're saying if. Should it not be possible? They're saying if. Should it not be possible um, to find to return to a Europe of fatherlands with our current partners. And now here, this little hour, it's telling us a lot about German writing habits, because the Germans, they're making a general statement. Um, should it not be possible to return to Europe of fatherlands with the current partners? But in English, we tend to speak more personally. So we say we, our, yours, mine, because if we use this German habit of speaking in the third person all the time, or from an omniscient observer perspective, nobody's going to know what you mean. We mean our current partners, and ours, we are Germany, right? With our current partners in the EU, or with our current EU partners, Germany must exit the European Union, must follow Britain's example and exit the European Union. So here I've placed Britain's example before the act of exiting the European Union. It just sounds more natural in English. And of course, I would like to unravel what does it mean to sound more natural. It's not some kind of magical mystery. It's there's like concrete linguistic indicators that show you that can tell you how to sound more natural. Because this is to follow someone's example, right? Follow someone's example. This is an idiom, right? So we must follow Britain's example and exit the European Union. You wouldn't say exit the European Union following Britain's example. this would be more close to, this would be closer to the German source, but it doesn't following Britain's example, and that by saying it that way, following Britain's example, you kind of ruin the idiom, because in English you say, I need to follow their example and do this. Follow the example and following Britain's example is just kind of like a throw-on in the back, which you don't really know what it's supposed to mean. So this is something you have to pay attention for, especially with German, because they just have a different sentence order sometimes. Should it not be possible to, or yes, we could also say should a return not be possible, but this is a nominalization, right? Should a return not be possible? Uh, I, I want to use a verbal style of writing, so I'm saying, should it be possible to return to a Europe of fatherlands with our current EU partners, Germany must follow Britain's example and exit the European Union. So next we have private pension plans. We could say that. Private pension plans, private pension insurance, or whatever, for parliamentarians, and that's not. I know we're talking about Aryans, but we're not. Parliamentarians is not something we. It's not something you say in English. You could understand it, but you would say like a member of parliament or something, right? And I'm just going to use a dictionary. Parliamentarian. For all you people that are not living in Germany, we use Lingui. Very good statistical dictionary, so it actually gives you real life examples and not just static entries. So we're going to say members of parliament, and how do you call them in the U.S.? Call them what's the parliament? Congress, members of Congress or whatever, right? And so we're going to say members of parliament. So Bundestag members, or Tag, well, it depends, especially the parliament, the lower house of the parliament uh, is often the native name in English, like you talk about the Kremlin in Russia, right, or the Assemblée Nationale in France, or sometimes you also say the Bundestag, but I prefer to keep it more general, like you could say like federal um, members of the federal parliament or whatever, or national deputies, whatever, national deputies currently are currently not paying into the government or to the mandatory pension insurance, right? Because here they say they're not paying pension contributions, and you don't know how it is in every Anglophone country, and we want to make it clear it's the mandatory pension insurance or the government pension scheme, the mandatory pension scheme. And here we can already make a period. We don't have to make the sentence too long. Or we could add this information, and after a few years already receive payouts, right? So here I've switched the word. They're saying after a few years they already receive a pension, or yeah, they already they already receive pension payments, and we're saying they receive payouts. This is the it follows, right? You pay into the pension and then you get payouts. So you have to use a simpler word and not stick and not go, copy paste this and then go put it in a dictionary and then not get anything that's going to help you. Old age pension, retirement benefits, old age provision, what the hell, we're talking about payouts. In this particular, you always have to think of this particular meaning. Receive payouts, which um, a middle income worker, yes, a middle income worker, you could say that, a middle income worker or a middle wage earner. Do you say that? No, you wouldn't say a middle wage earner, right? An average wage earner. Which a middle income worker would not even achieve after paying in for 45 years. National deputies are currently not paying into the mandatory pension scheme, comma, and after a few years are receive payouts which a middle income worker would not even achieve after paying, would not even get, or which a middle income word, comma, which, if which is additional information, it should be separated by a comma. If it's not additional information, it shouldn't even be which, it should be that. So, income worker would not even get after paying in for 45 years. Oh, wonderful, this overburdened supply model, right? What the hell, my brain is overburdened. So don't copy these phrases. Don't be like Google. Show the client you're doing something for your money. Use your brain. Be aware what the text you're working on. The AFD, right? By now, we could start using the acronym because probably it's been introduced before. The AFD wants to remodel or reform or whatever, wants to remodel. They say they want to thoroughly reform, actually. Thoroughly. Maybe even revolutionize, but revolution is not a term maybe you use in the program of a right-wing party. Wants to thoroughly reform the expensive pension scheme for members of parliament, which overburdens taxpayers, right? You're overburdening taxpayers. And switch, in English, that's what I like about English. You can switch. And you don't have to say transition, and it's still going to be a formal text. You can say that, and switch to a private private pension scheme. The AFD wants to thoroughly reform, and always reread your sentences. Just once. You're gonna redo the whole thing later, anyways. But just check. The AFD wants to thoroughly reform the expensive pension scheme for members of parliament, which overburdens taxpayers, comma, and switch to a private, see I forgot an a private pension scheme. Now, I really don't like this relative clause right here, which overburdens taxpayers. Additional information, inserted by commas. I usually like to uh, add them as an adjective, you know, or as a participle, if that's what you call it, and integrate it. So, you know, have it before, like expensive, overburdening taxpayers' pension scheme. Let's see how that looks. Taxpayers, you know, like in colloquial English, you no good, damn, uh, hollering, blooty tootin', son of a bitch, you know, but you can't say that. So in this case, uh, we have to use this insertion. Reform this reform this expensive pension scheme for members. Or we don't have to add this information again, right? It's included before. It makes the sentence too long. The AFD wants to thoroughly reform this expensive pension scheme, which overburdens taxpayers, and switch to a private. This expensive model, right, because we had that already, which overburdens taxpayers, and switch to a private pension scheme. You see, so we cut out a lot of information, which is just redundant in the German source, you know, because um, they're re-mentioning the pension scheme, that this pension scheme is for members of parliament. We already said that before, right? So we cut that out, which overburdens taxpayers. This is important information, right? You always say, oh, the taxpayer should be mentioned in every sentence in a political text, and switch to a pension scheme. We've made it shorter, a little more simple. There's no confusion. So let's read the whole paragraph. National deputies are currently not paying into the mandatory pension scheme, and after a few years already receive payouts which a middle-income worker would not even get after paying in for 45 years. AFD. So see, I'm not using big words like contribute or whatever. The AFD wants to thoroughly reform this expensive model, which overburdens taxpayers, and switch to a private pension scheme. Actually, we could, to reduce the burden on taxpayers, you know, thereby we're making the party be more active, right? They're reforming this model and reducing the burden on taxpayers, and thereby we've eliminated some commas. You know, that's, you always have to think about getting rid of commas. And here I've switched the perspective. You always, switching perspective is a very good technique, you know, to in the original they said it's an expensive model which overburdens taxpayers, and so of course it's very logical, if we change this model we're reducing the burden on taxpayers. But you have to make this transition in your head, and this helped us to just make the sentence really straightforward. The AFD wants to thoroughly reform this expensive model to reduce the burden on taxpayers and switch to a private pension scheme. It also put and switch to a private pension scheme to reduce whatever. You could say either way. It's very clear. There's no confusion, no commas, no nothing. So that's it for this video. And please leave me any comments below, and let me know if there's anything you agree or disagree with, or that you would like to hear about in the future.